James, thank you so much for joining me today on Small Business Strong. I'm really excited to have you.
Thank you, John. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Of course. So I'd love to kick it off with a question. What is your purpose?
That's tough because honestly, I couldn't really answer that up until probably I would say maybe 10 years ago. And it's just because being able to look back through my life at the time, at the time you're going through things, I don't think at a younger age, I was very, I ain't gonna say I'm mature now, but I was really, really immature. And you don't really look for God's purpose in things. I think we get so caught up in, what we think we should be or what we think we should do, how we should do it, and all this kind of stuff. And when I graduated high school, I had no intentions of ever going back around that place. I've been a teacher there now for 24 years, my goals and desires were completely different when I left that place. I went to college to play football. I had a lot of anger issues, a lot of rage. And so that cost me that, ended up back at home, went to work, and I've done if you read, the bio, you've seen I've done a lot of different things. I don't even have all of them in there, I don't think. So, but I guess I'm giving all those details on that because I think it was a combination of everything. I got a slogan, it's called Keep a Digging. And I think it's a constant thing because your purpose is constantly evolving, in my opinion. To answer that question as a whole, I think I have to say that because I never looked at myself as a teacher, but I had to submit to God's will. And once I started doing that, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I don't take that by any means. I mess up daily by the minute most of the time. But by being obedient, I have seen blessings. We are so wealthy in relationships. Our family is the strongest it's ever been. I'm so thankful for that. And that's wealth to me. A lot of people look at money and things that, material things, but being able to talk to my wife and depend on her and her be at my side, that's you can't put a price tag on that. I can tell her anything I want to, she can do the same. And so the purpose is a lot of different answers, I guess, for me is I just that varies what he wants me to do, I think. And it seems like here lately with this feeder going on or feeders, it's about relationships. I've got contacts in my phone right now. Probably, I don't know what would be a good 30 some states, maybe. They call me, I call them. We send messages back and forth. I've got distributors, I've got dealers, I've got customers. Right now we're not that big, so I can do one-on-one conversations with customers and answer questions, problems, things of that nature. So right now, I guess probably the simplest answer I can give you as far as purpose is I want to be obedient to God as best I can. And that might entail doing what I'm doing right now, which is very uncomfortable for me. Speaking, I'm not one of those people. Being a teacher I'm telling you, is the most unorthodox thing for me. It's a monkey in a football bat. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but that's about what I am.
Uh,
I teach core construction, which is basically an introduction to carpentry, masonry, plumbing, electrical, the whole 9 yards, welding. I just try to give them a taste of us and see if something sticks,
yeah,
and I tell them, a lot of times it's, things easier to figure out what you don't want to do than it is to figure out what you do want to do.
yeah,
And then still on top of that, is it what God wants you to do? And that is the ultimate. That's why I say keep a digging because 9 times out of 10, our personal desires, whether we realize it or not, are really strong. And that
yeah,
tendency is going to dig and take over. My wife is really good at I'm one of them that man, I get an idea, and obviously, I'm throwing stuff together.
yeah,
And she's kind of more reserved, and she's like more strategic, more reserved in her thinking. And we're really good for each other in that aspect because, I would run out and get my head chopped off, and she
yeah,
if she wasn't
yeah,
here. But both of us together, it works that way. So I've looked at this way and kind of come to this conclusion. If I'm out of my comfort zone, then I'm most of the time doing what he wants me to do because I have to depend solely on him. I've prayed before this podcast. I've kind of went through and done notes. I want if somebody's listening to this, what is it you want them to hear from me? And that's out of my comfort zone. That's just something, and I have to depend on him for those answers. I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons I guess that it does bring me uncomfort or whatever it is we're going to be held accountable for what we do. And I feel like preachers and people teaching are going to be held to you're influencing people. You're causing kids to go a certain direction. So that's going to be that's pretty serious business.
yeah,
So I take it very seriously, and then I come home and my wife will tell you I'm frustrated, I'm aggravated because 'cause I've screwed up, my kids ticked me off or something like that, and I've not
Yeah,
handled it the right way or so many things, and I worry about that constantly because as an influential person like that, you are held, I believe, to a higher standard there. It's, he don't bring you into that business for as a joke. That's something serious,
sure.
and so, that's kinda, it's uncomfortable. You
Yeah,
don't wanna mess up.
that's
Yeah.
really good. So when did the slogan "Keep digging" kind of stick?
Uh, Keep a digging. Actually, I coached football for 17 years, high school football, and that was another thing. I did, that was that's what actually got me into education, if you will. I was working in plastics at the time and had been in plastics for about 16 years at that time. And old buddy of mine that we played ball with, he became the head coach down there and called me up. He's like, I need a linebacker coach. And I'm like, really? Well, good luck with that. He said, no, I want you to do it. And I said, I playing ball and coaching ball is two different things. He said, I just need you to coach like you played. I
Yeah.
said, are you trying to lose your job? Is that what
Yeah,
you're trying to do? And so anyway, we did that. I did it part time and, you know, got in it and just kept going. And probably 7 years went by doing still working in plastics. I was over night shift crews doing that and then coaching football in a day. So you can imagine it getting pretty rough. And
yeah.
uh, fortunately, by the good Lord's will, which at that time is another one of the things that I didn't see or recognize, but they were cutting back position, cutting back, trying to save money. We call it
Downsizing or
downsizing. Thank you. They cut like 52 positions in our company in one day.
wow.
So mine was one of them. And so what was ironic about it is the principal at that time had come to our lineman camp. Actually, was on that Saturday. I was a nighttime supervisor over two shifts. So I come in on Sunday night at 11 and do Thursday night and then, that kind of deal. Had two swing shifts, but we'd done a camp on Saturday, a lineman camp. And he come up to me and he was like, man, I like how you handle kids. And he said, would you be interested in a job? And I said, well, you know what? I said, I ain't gonna burn no bridges because, I've heard rumors and stuff like that, and I may need a job, and I really didn't honestly think anything about it. And lo and behold, went into work. My boss, his boss was waiting on me that night, gave me my walking papers, and I left there, called my buddy, and I said, you ain't gonna believe it. I said, I don't have a job. He said, you're kidding. I said, no. And told him the story, and he said, meet me at the principal's office there Monday morning. And so we did. And I went and got my bus driver's license, drug test, background check, all that kind of good stuff. And that next school year started, I was a school bus driver, a football coach, and in school suspension. It was within a week. It was pretty much a week.
Wow.
I'd been coaching there for 7 years at that point, but that's all it was. It was a lot different than being walking in the halls of the school. I went there for strictly coaching, and that was it. And
Yeah,
so my world just flipped. You taking somebody that was introverted as far as speaking, and it was just a absolute struggle for me. So I had to depend, it was something that I'm like you were saying, earlier before we started about asking God, what is it you want me to do? That was really a question I had almost daily. Is this right? This feels so wrong. I am so out of place. The simple thing about it is you look back and you say, okay, I am not going to make that mistake again. Number one.
yeah,
But the other thing is he is preparing. It's just a matter of whether we want to recognize that or not. And, he's gonna give me the tools. I had to go back to school while I was doing that. I had to get I didn't have that particular time, I had a associate degree, but I didn't have a bachelor's degree to where I could actually teach a class. So I had to go back to school, plus do everything I was doing, and I don't recommend that to anybody. Very difficult, and, but we did it, and very thankful for my family and their support. They had tolerated a lot of computer slamming, doors slamming. It's awful, yeah, but,
yeah,
they endured it, and, but anyway, got that done and, got in, I was teaching personal finance, and so I guess I say the "Keep a Digging" slogan a bunch because it's constant. To me, it's constant. Every day there's a new challenge. There's something that he wants me there's another avenue he wants me to explore for whatever reason, another
yeah,
type of, small business strong, a podcast. I mean, I've done one other podcast that was a couple years ago. We went to a show in Alabama and I met a guy and we did one. It was cool, but it wasn't to this magnitude, it wasn't, so I think it's the preparation, like I say, you got to keep digging. And then the other thing I say, I get all kind. I get you ask my family, I got nicknames and all kind of stuff. But when we talk about, they say this is a plastic feeder. How does a bear not tear this thing up? And I'm like, it's a God thing. When you're talking about that thing, it's a God thing because I didn't build it for that. That's not
Yeah,
one you'll find that out as we go. You may have already read it, but I didn't build it for that. So,
man.
but yeah, you got to keep it digging. It's a daily thing. Just keep it digging.
Keep it digging. I love it. I love it. So, one thing I read on your website was you wrote that if you could record everything God's done in your life in this business, it would be a very thick book. Would you
Yes.
be willing to share a few of those things?
Oh, absolutely. First and foremost, he brought my family back together. My wife and I actually divorced after 7 years of marriage, and we were actually apart for 7 years. As far and then he brought us back together. We've been back together now for hold on, 20 some years, 20 some, whatever that is.
Yeah.
You do the math. If we'd have stayed married the whole time, we'd been married 30, what was it, 33 years now? 34 this year. Been 34 years this year. And so
Wow.
you take 7 years out of that we were apart. And so first and foremost, that is the greatest miracle, in my opinion, and my testimony that we have because most families don't have that opportunity. When that happens, it's done deal, and it's just so I'm very thankful for that. We have probably one of the strongest families. It's probably the most dysfunctional that you'll ever see or hear about, but it's strong and it's God strong, and that's what we base everything we do. Don't that we're perfect and we don't do it all right, but that's what we base it on. That's kind of our basic guideline is what we do, and so very thankful for that.
So, after 7 years apart, what was the thing that you would attribute to bringing y'all back together?
Both of us were going back to God. We seen that our way wasn't working. My way wasn't working. Her way along with it wasn't working. And we realized that we were high school sweethearts. I was 17, she was 15 when we started
Wow.
dating. We dated for 4 years before we were married. And so we'd been together longer than we'd been alive, up to that point, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
So we both had developed a very hardness of heart. And that's the world. That's what we deal with and if the devil is very smart, is very creative, he's not going to bring you something that you don't like. The more confusion he can cause and stuff like that. So, when we backed up and everybody says, well, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, I've done that. And I agree. Yeah, it's hard but you can stop at any time and turn it over to him. Now, does that mean you don't have discipline? Things that are for discipline or consequences? No, there's always consequences. And my wife used to tell her kids all the time, make good choices, and every time they go out the door. And there's truth. I mean, there's so much truth to that. Make good choices because, I've heard people say, well, I didn't do anything. Well, that's a choice. You're choosing not to do anything, and there is a
Yeah.
consequence to that as well. So you need to get in the game. I mean, and I shouldn't say game. I'm old ball coach, so
Mhm.
that's worded a little bit wrong. But you got to be involved in doing God's will, and I'm the one that I tell her all the time. I don't want to mess up. I don't. She says God already knows your heart. He knows you're going to mess up. He's already planned for that. He made you. He made me, so he knows my failures or my weaknesses. My job is to try to improve on that and learn from those and from other people.
We have time for one more.
Yeah, another thing is, as far as the feeder goes, when I first built it and done a prototype and was doing all this stuff, and it was working, and we was trying to find a manufacturer to actually, we were getting a patent pending. We've been patent pending for a while, but we were looking to a manufacturer how we were going to build it. Wasn't real sure because I just had a big ugly fiberglass thing that I'd fabricated, and so talked to some engineers and the people that I talked with kind of recommended that we do thermoforming. And so that's the road I was trying to go down. So I'm talking to all these people everywhere about thermoforming and I'm getting back this, well, we can do the top part, we can't really do the bottom part. So I'm going down and all of a sudden I call this number and it's the wrong number actually, but it turned out to be the right number. But the guy it was rotational mold. And so talked to him a few minutes after he said, send me an email, send me some videos. Let me see what you, so I sent him some videos and I'm up on the mountain. Actually, me and my buddies up on the mountain up there, filling this feeder up, the original one I built. And this guy calls me and I don't know how the signal got through because there's never a good signal up there, but it got through. And he said, "How fast can you get that feeder to Elkin, North Carolina?" And I said, "Well, I'm filling it up right now. I can pull it down and take it right now." And he said, "The faster you can get it up there, the better." He said, "I got 2 guys that fabricate for me, and they're both hunters, and so I think they can help." So me and Bob, I said, "Buddy," we took that feed back out of it. I pulled it down, loaded it up, and went to Elkin. And I call them the boys from Elkin. They just 2 old country boys like me, and God bless them. They can make a spaceship out of a broom handle, I believe. That is phenomenal. But they hand fabricated my first molds, the first Owl 150. Hand
Wow.
fabricated that thing, and we built the first 6 in the middle of a cornfield. They had a makeshift oven and rotate. I don't know if you've seen any of the videos. I need to send you some if you haven't seen them. They're just cool to watch. But we built the first 6 feeders in the middle of that cornfield. And so,
So I don't know a ton about a rotational. I'd love to see those videos. You can
yeah,
email them to me. But so if I'm not mistaken, you have to have an aluminum mold, right? Is that correct?
yes.
Or okay,
Well, actually, we have 2 different kinds now. The first one is aluminum mold, and then the next 2 that we have are cast molds.
okay.
So you can go. There's a I didn't realize this either, and I'm still learning too. So I don't know all the details to it, but there are numerous ways. There's some they have phenomenal technology now on that stuff, and the way we're doing it still is not the fastest method. There's faster ways to do it. We've actually investigated into some injection molding, which is very, very, very expensive because the molds are just they're but they can produce. I mean, like for example, we've only built up to date. We've not quite reached 1,000 feeders. We've been doing plastic feeders since June of 23. So a little over 3 years into it, and total, we've only built, probably 950, somewhere in that ballpark. So, but they can build with an injection mold. They could do 1,350 in 1 week.
Wow.
So, yeah, and see, and then they can do it a lot cheaper that way too. As far as business goes, we're really looking at either manufacturing ourself. We're getting stuff, we like I said, I can send you. We build them in the cornfield. Now, obviously, the quality wasn't nearly as good, but we could spend a little bit more money on some of the setup and get a good quality product, and then be able to drive the price of that product down and be very, very competitive with some of your other, people out there. So, we're trying to do all that kind of thing. It's like I say, I'm a school teacher. My wife, she does her own telecom business, and so you know we don't have a ton of money to put into it. So we have to kind of be very strategic in our finances in doing this kind of thing. So, and so far it's paid off. We got a lot of people. We've got some really, really great distributors right now that support us tremendously. They're putting our product out there. They're using it. They're putting videos on social media, and just unbelievable support. That's what it's going to take. And I feel like, those relationships, again, like I just said, I can take his phone right now and call any one of them, and it's like calling a family member almost.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's been really, really great. I'll just put it that way, meeting some of these people. It's like, it's just a godsend. It really is.
I've got one more question about
Okay.
what we were just talking about, and I'd love to jump into the first prototype. So you said God's answered a ton of prayers for you. What's one prayer that you're waiting for him to answer right now?
Which direction to go as far as, manufacturing? I've kinda held off on partnership, kinda, just what's our next step, what's the direction, as far as being able to do that, production for us to be able to, if we got a phone call from a big company right now, we couldn't provide the amount, we don't have the means to provide the amount, so we're gonna have to, at some point, we're gonna have to either partner with somebody that has the financial backing to do that, or build our own thing, and then just keep going. Right now that's the direction we're going right now, because I really don't know anything else to do, and that's just going to be a time thing. So we're kind of just my wife is just keeping me grounded and being patient for him to answer that.
Uh,
I'm very impatient. I was trying to find somebody to build the prototype for the feeder, and it was going to be astronomical. I
yeah.
didn't even know if it was gonna work. It was just, I had it on paper. And so finally I said, "I'm gonna do it myself." And she said, "I think you're being impatient." And I said, "Well, if we keep waiting around on this, I said, number one, we can't nobody's give us a price that we can afford." And so I just started, and about 3.5 months later, I had the prototype in the woods. So sometimes I override her.
What did the first prototype look like? Did it look anything like it does today?
It's similar. It's ugly. It's a lot uglier. The dimensions are not accurate. It's not symmetrical, if you will. We actually had that video It was the first video on our homepage on our website. It's very, very ugly, but it worked. That was the main
Wow.
thing. It worked, yeah.
What did you and your family put on the line to start Mag Feeders?
We saved some money up, like I say, I had to take some money, and like I say, I don't make a lot of money as a school teacher, y'all know that, so, these molds are still expensive, so we sacrificed a lot of vacation. I feel like that was something that God laid on my heart, and as far as putting something on the line, it was faith. I wanna say faith because it was not really putting on line, but kinda testing it, if you will. It's
Yeah.
something that was, out there. It was a stretch, and having belief in yourself and having belief that he's given me that for a reason or whatever. As far as financial, we've got some debt. I mean, we borrowed some money. I waited till our kids are both grown before we really took putting a whole lot of time and effort into it. Obviously, it started in 17, so my daughter just graduated in 19. And my son graduated high school in 15. So now he's married and got a job, and I got a grandkid and a daughter-in-law, and our daughter's doing her thing now, and very, very successful in her career right now. So that allowed us to be a little more, flexible, spend what we spend our money on a little more, I guess you say. But as far as really putting something on the line that was going to, I didn't go that far to say we're going to lose our house or we're going to lose, you know what I'm saying? It
Sure.
wasn't to that extreme. I'm not that. I'm not that person.
Uh,
Faith that you're just not going to look like a blooming idiot. I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Or
Where do you see Mag Feeders in 10 years?
my ultimate goal, I'd like to build kind of a combination of a boot camp slash I do a trade up program right now in the summer with kids. We get them involved and do like apprenticeships with other businesses and let them train. They're getting their hands on stuff. So I do that at the college. And so, but what I would like to do is my own thing and have my own facility. I told you I grew up a little bit different. And there's kids that grew up a whole lot harder than I did, and it's for those kids. Be more of a one-on-one type deal. I could bring in. I've got a lot of resources with guys that run heavy equipment, electrical, plumbing, etc. But then I would have it to where they would come in, and boot camp. We wouldn't be crazy, but what I have learned is coaching football is when your body is a young person is physically when you start doing well and you see yourself getting stronger, et cetera, like that, you gain confidence in yourself
Yeah.
and so it's just that would be what would be in place for that. And then, if you come to me and said, hey, I'm interested, I'd like to do some electrical. I say, okay. My cousin's a licensed electrician. Here, you're going to work with him for a month. Okay. And the other part of that that's going to come into play is the hunting and fishing and the outdoors. It's going to lead up. Maybe this kid's been on drugs or maybe this kid's been abused, where but if let's say they've been drugs and they're clean for 6 months, okay, guess what? You just want to hunt with. I'm going to send you down here to Cody Smith, Witt Farms. You're going on deer hunt with him for 3 days. I want them to realize that God does have a purpose for you, and part of the outdoors and hunting and fishing. What it was for me was my keep a digging. It was it's that part that resonated with me. When I would go, I would realize you've got to keep digging on there's something every day. You don't, when you become complacent, and that's my weakness right there because I like it. I don't like change. I hate change. And that's the one thing that is constant. It is a constant thing. So, I learned that as a football coach. We start out the game plan and man, it looked really good on paper. And usually by game day, we had maybe overhauled that whole thing. It didn't look nothing like it did when we started. And then by the second quarter, sometimes it didn't even look nothing like that. We had to
Yeah.
change it in the locker room. So it's you gotta keep it digging. Get that next layer.
So, say someone is listening to this, they have an idea either in the hunting industry, fishing industry, or another industry. They have an idea on paper. What's some advice that you would give them to get started?
Try to look at every detail, taking and don't get hung up on what you can physically see and know. Okay, if that makes sense. So like detail, like this feeder has probably multiple parts. Some of your basic feeders, I guess, this is a gravity feeder, which is just basic. It's generic. It's a gravity feeder. So how difficult can a gravity feeder be? But it actually has more parts than most gravity feeders do. So obviously that drives more expense. I would look at first and foremost, like you asked earlier, financially, what kind of shape am I at? Financially, can I make it on my own? Can I build it out of? I built this thing out of chicken wire, metal conduit. I actually, honest to good Lord, I've got pictures I can show you. The actual tray, the cone in the tray was cardboard at one point.
Yeah,
I had to do that to get the symmetry like I needed to. So I had little pie-shaped pieces of cardboard and baling twine running off the edges to get my edges right. So,
that's
you
great.
know, my point in saying that is there I promise you this, I'm not that smart, okay? I have a hard time quitting. That's my problem. I finally quit dipping backer after 40 some years and it was hard, but I did.
Wow.
But I have a hard time quitting. I just once it got in my head and I said this idea came to me. I don't know if I ever told I don't remember if it's on the website or not, but it's about a month after my mom passed away. And so probably built, I don't know, 40 or 50, 60 different feeders in my lifetime, upward,
Yeah.
and none of them worked like what I was after. And, I always kid and say, mom just flicking me in the head saying, here, what are you wait? This is it. What are you waiting on? So, but anyway, when I say jump in head first, I don't mean find it money wise. I mean, I don't, my capabilities technology wise is very limited. So you're going to have to be able to have other resources and people. I had a guy that worked at a school that was great on CAD and Obdullah. He was a machine, very helpful. He'd take my chicken scratch on paper and he would turn it into something on that computer. And so helped me tremendously on that. We sat in there for hours, point to this and say, I need it to do. And he's trying to understand my hillbilly gibberish, trying to understand all that and got it in, just kept at it. So I guess probably the ultimate thing are you willing to sacrifice too? I started sacrificing stuff. I didn't hunt as much. I didn't get to go as much as I wanted to go because different things like that. And then, like I said, vacations, that's something you're involving your family. I guess is about, what was that song, Tim McGraw, how bad do you want it? And that really, there's so much truth to that. My ultimate goal, just like I told you, is I would like to see this thing pay for those things I thought. So really, it don't even really have anything to do with the feeder in the end. You know what I'm saying? It's about I'd like to have something to be more focused on kids have opportunity that if I kneel down and pray with a kid in high school right there, and somebody sees that don't like it, then I'm going to probably most likely lose my job, and it's going to be plastered all over some kind of news channel somewhere. So if I have this in my business and my feeder's paying for that, any of my employees can kneel down and pray with this person at any time. Matter of fact, it's going to be encouraged. The people that work for me are Christians and they strongly believe in prayer. And if they see this, they like tell us kids, say, look, man, we're going to pray this morning before we start this day. And this is going to
Yeah.
be all right. And that's what I want. I want that atmosphere. I want that. When I was growing up, I had people that God had put in my life. Thank God that He did. That kept me out of jail, probably, to be honest.
So, can you give us just a quick run through of the manufacturing process? So you had an idea, you looked into roto molding, you sent your prototype to the factory.
We actually, like I say, the first set of molds we had was hand fabricated up in Elkin, North Carolina. Then we got tied up with more of a specialized group in Siler City, North Carolina. They do specialty items, and so we were able to get with them, and they actually had some molds built that were more accurate, more the cast molds. It was just more definitive, look better, etc. And so, but once you get those, you sit down with whoever is going to help you with your drawings, like he, had a more advanced, I told you about my buddy at the high school. I think it was more, I guess, the right two-dimensional, if you will. And then when we got to this, now it's three. You just sit there and roll everything around three-dimensional or whatever you want to call it, just
Yeah.
all directions. And so we went up a scale a little bit on that to be able to be more precise. We were able to add features to it that we wanted to that we didn't before, et cetera. And so, but once you get those drawings in place, you either have hand fabricated molds made, cast molds. And so once you get that in place, then like basically what we do is our molds stay in Siler City right now. And we have three different models. And so we email them and say, okay, this is what we're looking at. We're still based out of our home here. So we've got two buildings out here, a 12 by 24 and a 12 by 16. One of them I basically put all the feeders together in, and then I store feeders in the back end, and then the other one is just for the big feeders. Now we order that plastic for whatever models we want. Then we got an enclosed trailer. We take off. We go get them Siler City 2.5 hour one way, so 5 hour round trip. Get that plastic back. We get it back. I have a guy. I buy the metal over here locally in Road Hills. Take it to Hidnot, North Carolina, and my buddy over there fabricate the actual arm. Now, I did all this in the beginning. My stuff just didn't look as good. You know, so we moved up the scale, make it more professional, but
Yeah.
it come out of my brain, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I get all that material back here, and then once I get it back here, I bring it all together and check everything. I may have to do some modifications or whatever to make sure it functions like I need to. Because you're taking 3 pieces of plastic that has been roto molded, which is you got about a 3% variation in plastic and thick. You just got to make sure. So you may be shaving this or, drilling a hole different here, whatever, to get everything to line up. And so that's hard for me to ask a customer to just send that package and say, okay, you build it. They've never done it. But once they do it one time, all the people I would say that's bought one that's using it, I dare say that they would tell you, hey, it's pretty simple. Once you get it ain't rocket science. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So you said you've built like roughly 30 deer feeders in your life. What about this deer feeder made you say, I'm going to bet the farm on it. I'm going to go all in and start mag feeders based on this design?
It kept coons out.
Okay.
The coons couldn't get in it. Well, we had that for a year and a half. The one thing that changed on that though is when we went, like I said, that was a fiberglass version, and so when we went to plastic and went to rotational molding, the process of rotational molding, for lack of a better description, and I know there's people that'll give you a whole lot better description than what I'm going to, but think of a basketball. It has to be complete, it has to be hollow, and any kind of shape you want, but it has to come out of the mold. Okay, so you can't have a big end trying to come out of small end, obviously, when you pull those molds apart, if you will.
Sure.
So that changed, but so it made me have to close the bottom of my feed tray in. And so, but when I did that, that allowed basically the design, the coons had to go up inside of that canopy and then reach down and then reach back up 8 inches. Well, genetically, they just physically couldn't hold on to the post and do it. You'll see the video I send y'all, you'll see what I'm talking about. So we just had to take a gamble on that and say, okay, let's see how that. We didn't know that was going to be an issue. So I actually had to build one first, and then once I did and seen that, well, now we're kind of stuck. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So now we have what's called. We're getting people to go. Basically, let's go buy a brute trash can, a 30-gallon trash can, flip it upside down, cut the top off, screw it up to the bottom, and now you got your canopy back.
Okay.
So we're calling that the coon curtain. So we're
Yeah.
actually working on. I'm gonna try to get them guys to build me another mold instead of somebody having to go buy a trash can at Lowe's. And all this, then we'll have everything. We'll just have a package deal that they can purchase, and you don't need it necessarily. That's the other thing. When you look at our next model, the Owl 150 and the Gator 300, if you look at those trays, they look like inner tubes. So that goes back to what I said before. Keep a digging. It made
Yeah.
me keep digging and come up with even a better design on that feed tray.
Are there any other products that you're working on in the near future?
Yeah, the next one will be the Brute J Johnson. All my feeders are nicknames from my family. So the Owl 150 and 180 is actually after my wife Allison. The last one we just come out with was the Gator 300, which is my son's nickname, Gator, and my daughter's nickname is Brute. So and she's a beautiful little blonde headed girl, but she tears everything up. So anything she touches, 9 times out of 10, it's tore up. So
Yeah.
she got that nickname at a very early age, so I call her Brute J. The
Yeah.
next one will be our biggest one, and it'll be a 400 to 450 pound. I don't know exactly, and it's probably going to be the largest one that we can do without some major. I'm going to have to go up in obviously parts, sizes, the diameter of it, stuff for stability, etc. But the main reason I'm doing that is for we just started supplying the 300s to some high fence people, and obviously they're used to 1,000 pounds or something
Yeah.
like that. But they're also dealing with we just heard back from a high fence in Arkansas. We've got one of our distributors out there is actually working with a bear outfitter with our feeder, and then right next door is a high fence. Well, he got talking with them, and long story short, they're feeding with these big giant metal bins, like I say, hold 1,500 to 2,000 pounds. But the way they're designed, groundhogs get up, just dig, dig, dig. 400, 500 pounds ends up on the ground, it ends up rotting it. So, it's really not that big. 2,000 pounds is great, but if you're not getting 2,000 pounds to your animals. So what we're looking at is, okay, let's try to find a happy medium here. If you ain't having to feed coons, if you ain't having to feed getting wet and spoiling, that's the other thing with metal feeders. A lot of times there's too airtight and it holds moisture and the feed spoils. The 450 pound is mainly for them. The individual, obviously, if they have a long ways to travel, that's what the 300 has helped with is lasting longer, feed lasting longer. And so they don't have to make as many trips if you're hunting 2 or 3 hours away.
So you
But
settled
that
on the
was
gravity design. Did you ever toy with the spin cast version?
actually, we've actually talked about not really the spin cast. We've talked about putting a motorized on the hopper itself. So like how ours functions is it counterclockwise raises the hopper up, opens your gap, clockwise closes it up. So we talked about possibly putting a motor. However, that kind of violates our patent right now.
Okay.
So until we get our patent stabilized with these three right here, we're patent pending on everything. So I'd really like to kind of I don't wanna get too far ahead. We got a lot of money invested every which way we turn, so I'd like to
Yeah.
see that part through. We got our mag feeders is registered now, our mag outdoors registered. We're just kinda waiting on that patent. Once we get that patent, I feel like, with the amount of footage that we have now, we have got a ton of bear footage. We just sent 2 feeders to, Ralph and Vicky. I don't know if you've heard, they're out past you out in Colorado.
Okay.
Uh, it's called The Choice. You can
Okay.
pull them up and look. They've been a TV show, a show going now for about 25 years. Great family, good Christian people. But they've had trouble with bears in Colorado tearing their feeders up, and it looked like grizzlies. So yeah, I don't know what we're going to run into, but I told him, I said, we'll give it a shot. So I sent him 2 feeders. They're supposed to be getting them here shortly after the fourth here. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I think the more people we sent 2 to Ted Nugent, his ranch in Texas. I just got back some pictures from his ranch manager showing the 150 he put up. So, and he was excited about keeping the coons out on that one. So, we're going to have some exotic animals eat now. We've never had that so far on this point. So, I
Wow.
think the more and more that stuff like that gets out and people, I'm not real sure. Where did you see us? Was it on Facebook or?
I've been seeing your feeder pop up everywhere. It was primarily Facebook, but
Yeah.
whatever y'all are doing with marketing is working because I've seen your feeder multiple times.
I gotta tell you and give credit where credit's due. When we first got probably the first year, I guess, we did a show over here at our local, feed mill over here at Johnson Feed Mill, and probably one of the best shows we'd done up to that point. There wasn't about 50 people there, but I think we sold about 8 or 10 feeders at that show.
Wow.
But we had a kid pop up there from up in Ashe County. His name's Cody Smith, and he's when you see Witt Farms, that's who that is now. But he popped up and was just love. He had seen our feeder somewhere. Like I say, we had started putting it on Facebook, but it just wasn't. It was just us. So I don't know what the algorithms are or whatever, but he seen it and he wanted to know if he could do some content with it on his. He was doing TikTok at the time, and so I said, "Yeah, sure." So we give him a feeder, and then we come out with the orange one for the Alabama show, just as a eye catcher. That's
Yeah.
all it was built for, and now people are buying these things, using them to feed out of. He wanted the orange one. It was around Halloween. He said, "Man, I can get some good content." So I give him an orange, and,
Yeah.
so now he's down in South Carolina now at his grandpa's farm, and he's running all of our feeders down there, and he'll do every now and again, he'll do blast of this stuff, and I don't know, he's got, like, 50-some thousand followers on his Facebook thing now, so and he didn't start doing Facebook until actually last year, I think. He was
Wow.
mainly TikTok, yeah, and so, but anyway, kinda what really slingshotted us last year about this time, he put a was it 2 or 3 videos? I can't remember. One of them went viral like crazy, and we sold 600 feeders in a matter of, like, 3 months. We were
Wow.
literally loading our truck, loading up, taking a trailer to Siler City every Saturday. I had my guy panicking, building arms, and we pick them up, and we were doing like 30 and 40 feeders a week is as fast as
Wow.
we could go. Yeah, we did that the probably last 3 months of 2025. Am I right on that? Yeah, 2025.
That's amazing.
And so, and this year has been it's crazy. I would have thought that when we first started, I said, okay, from March to say the end of July, that's when we're going to be everybody getting prepared. Boy, I missed the mark so bad. It was end of July to 1st of December, just as hard as we could go, right in the middle of deer season. So we're trying to gear up this year. but we've got 2 new products brought online, so, we're just now getting ready, 2 weeks from now, we've got our big load of gators that we're gonna pick up plastic on the 18th, and, she's already sold, pre-sold quite a few of those, so we're probably getting ready to start doing a consistent run now, back and forth on Saturdays again. If you're getting too busy, we could use another hand.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that is so cool. So is there anything else that I should ask that I didn't ask yet?
If you're younger, and when I say younger, I'm saying, anywhere from 20 to 40, I guess, is that
Yeah.
because I really like I say, keep a digging and it's a God thing is a true that's not just some kind of catchy slogan. It's real because I look back and I was so mad and so angry at stuff, the situation. My friends would go hunting and fishing with their dad or camping, and I spent time with my pa, but when I went to my that was my mom's dad, and but when I went over to his place, I was working. It
Yeah.
was time I was 6 years old, I was on a tractor, which I'm so thankful for now. That's one thing that that's another thing, you put me in any piece of equipment, I might look like a robot, but I can get it done. That was because of him, but I look back and at that particular time, I hated everything and everybody,
Mm,
and I felt like I'd been done wrong and that I deserved better. And there's kids right now that have cancer that are dying every day as babies, or some people have problems that they're dealing with, and that's another thing I hear people say all the time. Well, if God's so caring and so great, why does good people go through bad things? Well, there's one simple explanation, and the only thing I can say is them people are really, really strong. He's
mm,
not gonna put nothing on you can't handle. But if that's going through cancer or whatever it is, that is to achieve something that he wants done. And does that sound cruel? Maybe it is. I don't know. But I look at those people as these kids that are dealing with stuff. We're sponsoring a kid right now in Arkansas. I won't say his name or anything right now, but they're dealt with brain cancer and he's fighting that. And his family's just unbelievable. What they're going through. And we're trying to do what we can. I mean, I think they're doing a raffle for we set a feeder up. Vance did set a feeder up for him, everything like that. But I guess the biggest thing I want to say is God's a great God. And if you're going through something hard, it's because He knows you can handle it, and it is affecting other people, and
mm,
they're watching that. I'm a human being, and I'm going to fail you 9 times out of 10, but I
mm,
promise you, I'm going to keep a digging and try to do the best I can. And don't let bad things or you seeing things at a young age that looks impossible hold you back.
mm,
You're going through some of whatever it is you're going through because he's preparing you for the next step. That's
mm.
as basic as I can say it, I guess.
That's so great. Well, James, thank you so much for being on Small Business Strong. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you, bud. Appreciate it, John.